Welcome to Dr. Jesenia Milagro Pizarro. Love the name Milagro. It's like the
Mhm.
prettiest word in the world. I mean, Jesenia is pretty too, but
Yeah.
love Milagro. Who is an associate professor at the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Arizona State University. So, before we go into what is a never ending list of accomplishments, how did you end up so far away from the East Coast? What are you doing out there?
Well, I never imagined that I was going to leave New Jersey because I'm always going to be a Jersey, particularly a Newark girl at heart, because that's where I grew up in. But the opportunity came that at Arizona State University, which is a Hispanic serving institution, and I just couldn't pass it up.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that about Arizona
Mhm.
State. Actually, so is St. Peter's, where I'm teaching too.
Mhm.
Interesting. All right, so bringing it back to Rutgers and Newark, you are a School of Criminal Justice triple threat because you received your BS, your MA, and your PhD from SCJ. So obviously, you knew that you wanted to work in crime from the very beginning. How and then I guess you worked for the Police Foundation early on, even before you were in grad school. Is that right?
Mhm. Yes.
And how did you decide that you were going to go toward crime?
Well, I knew that I wanted to do something law related. I grew up in Newark. I actually grew up the street from from Rutgers at in New Community, and growing up in Newark during the crack epidemic and the crack era, definitely allowed me to witness some not very nice things, and witness crime and um that always sparked my interest of wanting to do something about it. So as a child, I would always think that I wanted to be a judge because I wanted to clean up my neighborhood of individuals. So I always went into the criminal justice field, and a lot of it had to do with my upbringing and where I grew up and the things that I saw growing up. So I always say that I'm a product of Newark, and as a product of Newark, I have always wanted to do something to give back to Newark and to cities that are similar to Newark.
I understand that. I know
Mhm.
my family, well, my family emigrated to Newark too. And I have a special place for Newark in my heart. And people are
Yeah.
like, really? You really do? I'm like, yeah, we do. So we know the expression that all politics is local. But you took that concept to the world of criminology. Explain how important it is to examine violence in the local neighborhood level.
Well, it's very important, because one of the things that I've learned at Rutgers, and I have to give a shout out to one of my academic mentors, Ron Clark, is that crime is specific and it takes its shape based on the characteristics of places. And I learned very early on, through sitting in Ron Clark's class and through his mentorship, that if you want to create policies and prevention strategies that might work to decrease crime and violence, you need to tailor those strategies to the place. It's not a one size fit all approach, because generally places vary. So, what might work, for example, I always give the example of Operation Ceasefire. What might work in Boston is not necessarily what's going to work in Newark because the culture is different and the dynamics of crimes are different. So, I adhere a lot to those principles of place and catering your analysis and catering potential prevention strategies to specific locations so that they could fit the actual crime problem and the culture.
Makes sense. So, you all also recently become the editor of the academic journal Homicide Studies. First of all, congratulations. That is quite
Thank
an
you.
accomplishment. I don't know if people have any idea what an accomplishment that really is. It's tremendous. And given all your past work in homicide studies, is this rewarding for you to be able to see firsthand all the different kinds of studies that are coming in and being done on homicide?
Yes, it's very rewarding, and I want to take a step back and say that this is a great honor. I remember reading this article, this journal, and articles in this journal back in my grad school days when I discovered it, and I would be like, wow, this is like such amazing work. And a lot of my work was shaped based on what I was reading in this in the journal. So, fast forward 20 years and the fact that now I'm an editor of those of the journal, it's quite an honor, and I'm perpetually humbled by having that honor. And after all the work, one of the things that I usually tell my managing editor, and I see it this, we have now the opportunity to shape the knowledge base on homicide. What Because that's sort of what I am as the editor. I'm sort of a gatekeeper, right? So shaping what is actually published on this very important topic, which, by the way, it's increased in importance because homicides have been increasing throughout the country. So shaping the knowledge base, and in doing that, I try to put forth research that's meaningful and that can actually have an impact in the real world. And it's not there, that's not just an academic exercise for other criminologists to read. So I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Absolutely. That is such an
Mhm.
important part. It doesn't really make any sense for us to have knowledge and not do anything about it and not really help society in any way.
Yeah,
So
I
you all
agree.
remember, I know I'm so happy that we're pushing toward policy. I think that, I think during the time that, well, it's not a secret, you and I were in school together. And so I think that the push to policy has really increased during that beginning time. And it's great to see it. So
Mhm.
you're a member of a group called FACTS, which addresses the issue of firearm safety among children and teens, which is obviously a critical issue. Talk about the kinds of things that that group tackles and what is your role there?
So, facts. It tackles the issue of firearm violence affecting children and teens, and it's a very important issue. I don't think a lot of Americans and a lot of people realize that firearm injuries are the second leading cause of death for children and teens in this country. And when you start looking at subgroups, for example, if you look at African American young males, it is the leading cause of death. And it's the overall the second leading cause of death, second to auto fatalities. So it is a problem that is a public health concern that's affecting the country as a whole, because every day we lose thousands of children and youth to this issue. Um, so my role in this group, again, this has been a very humbling experience. I'm the only criminologist in this group. And I have the privilege of working with people from variety of fields, emergency room doctors, nurses, public health scholars, social work, psychology. And my role in this group is pretty much to represent criminology and to actually um, open the door to the knowledge base that we have accrued through the years in our field. It's interesting because a lot of us are doing the same work, but we're siloed between our disciplines, and we're not working together, even though we're doing the same thing. And one of the things that I have found interesting is that they have similar theories, but they call it different things. So I see this as an opportunity to bring um, all of us together to tackle the issue of violence, to tackle the issue of homicide, to tackle this issue, because I am convinced that if we want to make a dent at these violent crime rates, and particularly firearm violence rates, we need to take an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach, because we as criminologists do not have all the answers. There's really good work going on in injury prevention and emergency medicine that we can learn from, and they also can learn from us. And if we come together as a team, we could come up with better best practices to address these issues in our society.
That's great.
Mhm.
All right, so talk a little bit about the Sisterhood of Traveling Criminologists. How important is it for you? You know, you're young, you're extremely successful. How important is it for you to lead the path of young female criminologists, especially young women of color?
It's it's my driving force. I had no idea. So I kind of noticed when I was in grad school that I was the only one. And then as I got older and started looking, and looking at the statistics, I realized that we are very rare. Women of color, and particularly Latinas, are very rare in these positions. In fact, Latinos make up about 3% of all the tenure stream faculty teaching in PhD granting institutions, and institutions that grant PhDs in criminology and criminal justice. So I see this, I see my role as being a role model for and opening doors for other women of color and other Latinas, that representation is key, right? Kamala Harris said during the inauguration in her speech that you cannot be what you cannot see. And I'm hoping that if these young women and men alike from Newark, I'm a Newark girl, see me, that they're like, wow, I can be that, I can achieve that. In terms of the sisterhood, it's great because the Sisterhood of the Traveling Criminologists, which we originated in the American Society of Criminology annual meeting, and with that have a fearless leader, Dr. Frida Adler, who happens to be the first official women criminologist in our field. It's been great to have that support because let's face it, getting through grad school, getting through the tenure process is not easy. So you need people to rely on. You need people that are going to be there for you. You need people that are just going to be your friend. And that's what the Traveling Sisterhood has done, is create these friendships. And I often tell my students, create these friendships in grad school, because I created friendships that will last a lifetime in grad school, and I've created bonds that I feel are unbreakable. So it's very important to have that support. Mm.
Looking forward to our next picture.
Yes, yes. Due to COVID, this we
I
haven't had a
know.
picture in,
Exactly.
I think, 2 years, right? No, we didn't get one in 2020,
Right.
and we're probably not going to get one in 2021 because
Right.
I'm not planning to be there due to COVID. So
Yeah.
yeah, 2022 is the year
We'll
for
be
our
back.
next picture.
We'll be back. All right. So I have one last question for you.
Mhm.
What are the three things that you miss most about Rutgers and Rutgers Newark and Newark?
Oh
Haha.
my God. I miss so many things. I miss Robert's Pizza across the
Ah,
street.
yes.
No
Yes.
pizza has been outmatched. I miss my friends from grad school. I do. And what else do I miss? I miss that. Interestingly enough, I miss having these tough conversations with people who actually got things, like that I looked up to a lot, like George Kelly, Ron Clark, um, who got the importance of doing work at the community level and doing work that's translational. I miss sometimes having those conversations and seeing those practices in action, because sadly, our field is not really conducive to that. A lot of it has become, and how many journal articles you could write, and what's the prestige of the journal, instead of actually going out there and doing work that matters to the community, and that can save lives and create safer environments for the residents of those areas.